I've got some exciting news and a big problem. The exciting news is that in just over 10 days' time, I'm going to be on the Matra Enthusiasts Club stand at the Practical Classics Restoration Show at the NEC in Birmingham. So if you're there, I very much look forward to seeing you. Come and say hello. The big problem though is that I'm going to be there with obviously my Matra Rancho. And the Rancho, as you may imagine if you've been following this channel, currently looks like this, which is a long way short of show ready. And I've only got just over 10 days. This isn't going to be one of those TV reality shows without too much reality where I've got a week to restore this car to show condition and win a prize. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be on the stand as a work in progress project. The guys at the club know this, at least I think they do. But I do need to be able to get it I just need to be able to get it there. So I've got a trailer, so it doesn't have to drive there with an MOT and all of that. But it does need to get down off stands. It'll be great if it has some brakes. It'll be great if it can drive on and off the trailer under its own power. And it needs to have enough structural integrity that it doesn't fall apart while it's doing so. 10 days or so isn't a stupid amount of time to be able to do all that. Should be okay. Except I'm working full time as well. And I can't work here in the sheds in the evenings, so yeah, it's going to be tough.
The first thing I've got to do is to get these other cars out of the way. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, then you might remember this Honda Aero deck, which I started work on some time ago, repairing the extensive rust in the rear wheel arch, but I've kind of paused that because the shapes are really complicated, and much more so than the Rancho, so I've switched to working on the Rancho to improve my skills, and I'm hoping to go back to the Honda later this year. It should start and run, because it's a Honda. The Audi has had new brakes and is up on a tilter, which is quite surprisingly difficult to get off again. I've just been putting that job off, but it needs doing now, so we'll crack on with that. That, I think, doesn't run. It probably just needs the fuel tank draining and some fresh fuel putting in and maybe some injector cleaner and stuff like that. But for the moment, I think I'm probably just going to push it, because that'll be fine. The XJS has either a fuel pump or an ECU problem that's stopping it from starting, so that probably is going to be the hardest one to move. But if I can move the Audi and the Honda, then I can just drive around the Jaguar and worry about that somewhere a little bit further down the line. It's quite near the top of my to-do list to get that back on the road, but it's not a priority before the restoration show.
I'll move all this stuff, some of which will come with, like the bonnet and the front wing. The rest of it, there's seats and things that can either get piled up or come with, and drive around the Jaguar and out through the front doors and onto a trailer. So that's the plan. It's not much of a plan, but it's all I've got.
The first step in getting the Audi back down on the ground is to put it further back up into the air again, so that I can get out the axle stands that I've got underneath for belt and braces safety.
The problem is I've not got the lift forward enough to have the for the centre of gravity of the car. Look, I push down on the boot, up it goes. The trouble is, from back here, I can't reach the jacks. So I need something heavy. Hanging this jack over the boot sill and probably throw that on for good measure. Is enough to tilt the back down so the back wheels are on the floor. A little bit of bravery, stupidity needed to get under the car with it balanced like that, but not taking a massive risk. There we go.
This CJ Auto's car tilter does do a good job of getting the car up in the air, especially if you want to work at either end of it and don't need to work in the middle. But there is a certain amount of faff involved in actually getting it installed and uninstalled in the first place. It's fine if you've got a double width garage and room to pull it out sideways, but I don't here because I do have a double width garage, but it's full of other cars. I need to wind it up, get the axle stands out from under it that I've got for belt and braces safety, then wind it back down again, pull it partly out, partly dismantle the tilter, push it out the other side, dismantle that, and then I can kind of pull the various bits out and put it away out of the way. It's not a very difficult job, but it does take a bit of time, and it's not something you'd want to do when all you need to do is a 5-minute job. But yeah, this has been something like a 5-year job, so I guess it was worth it. So that's the Audi back on the ground and rolled back out of the way so that I can get the Rancho past it. It's good to have this back on its wheels. Next up is the Honda.
It's now the next day and I'm going to try and start the Honda. It's had a charge overnight and is showing a good row of LED lights, so I'm reasonably optimistic that it'll fire up. Place your bets now. Petrol's a bit stale, but there's nothing wrong with the car. I love this Honda.
They say necessity is the mother of invention, but she's also the auntie of flat-pack furniture assembly. I've had this stack of racking in a box in the other shed for about 3 years now, and at the same time in this area there's been a big pile of bits of Rancho and other assorted debris waiting for some shelving to put them on. Now that I've got to get this pile of stuff out of the way so that I can get the Rancho out past it, a couple of years sooner than I expected, it seems sensible to take a step back from tidying to devote a bit of time to actually building the shelves. Genius. That's enough furniture building. Time is really getting tight now, and I've got to get the car put back together. I didn't capture the bit where I put the front wing back on, or the scuttle panel, but they were reasonably straightforward with only a fairly moderate amount of swearing involved. The front wing happily went on over the door pillar work that I've been doing very comfortably, so that's good news. The bonnet, though, was a bit more of a fight because the bolts, they're kind of nuts, really. They're just getting the bolts through the hinges and then getting at the nuts to do them up was just a right old war. Ideally, you do this with the bonnet open and somebody holding the weight, but I didn't have anybody handy at the time to help me out, so I just had to kind of persevere and use double-jointed fingers. We got there in the end, though. That's a problem. I've got a new battery for it, but it's too tall. It fouls on here, and I can't put it the other way around because the terminals won't stretch. So that's a pity. I mean, I could probably sort of have it free floating somehow like this, and start the car, but I don't want to drive around like that because it'll just fall off. So that's frustrating. Just goes to show you can't trust battery finder things on websites. The front wheels went back on fine. The tyres look rather second-hand, but more on that story in a moment. At least I still had all the wheel bolts and everything. With the wheels back on, the next job was to get it down off the axle stands. I jacked it up using this floor jack with a cross beam on the cross member that runs under the engine. That's a lot of crosses. But it's still not as cross as me when I let the car back down again, having got the axle stands out, only to find that there wasn't enough clearance and it was still resting on the jack, which was now firmly wedged underneath. So, luckily, I've got another floor jack, and that was enough with a rubber bung under the chassis rail to lift it up so that I could retrieve my jack again. There's something very satisfying about pumping up flat tyres with an airline, especially if you speed up the footage 8 times. But there's something very dissatisfying when the valves break. Both the front tyres did this to me, and I've only got one spare wheel. And pushing it out on flat tyres is going to be really hard work. Luckily, I have a tyre valve replacement tool set and a whole box full of replacement valves, so we can do that. So that's the story so far. It's kind of bolted back together mostly. I've got the upper tailgate to do as well, and I've got to remove this roof rack, but it's got 3 flat tyres. 2 of them have got broken valves, and if I can't get air in the tyres, it's going to be really hard to get out. I can't drive it out because the battery doesn't fit, and I don't think the clutch is up to it. Yeah, so am I going to make it to the show? At this point, I genuinely don't know. I think it's about, I probably will, but there's going to be a fight. But I'm going to have to cut this video there because I'm not going to have time tomorrow to do all the rest of it, get the car loaded up and edit a video. So you're just going to have to see. If you're there and if I'm there, come find me on the Matra Club stand. Even if I'm not there, there's lots of cool cars that will be. The NEC Restoration Show is one of the highlights of the year for me. So yeah, fingers crossed I make it.